Hi everyone, my name is Ryan. Welcome to Math with RG. All right, today we are working on pre-algebra equal expressions with percent problems. Let's dive into it. And remember, I always say, read the question twice, check your work, and then before you move on, read the question again and ask yourself, does my answer make sense? Did I answer what they asked me to do? All right, let's dive into it. So, we have the consumption of pizza decreased by 14% in Los Angeles. Please demonstrate this in two different ways that you could write this out as an expression using the variable p. And then it says the normal consumption of pizza is represented by the variable p. Okay, so let's read that again, right? So this says the consumption of pizza decreased by 14%. So we want to look out for the key words here. Decreased is a keyword by 14%. Another keyword, 14%. So you have to ask yourself, well, what did it start at, right? So this is how percent problems work. What's the most famous percentage? 100%. So if we started out at a certain level, right, which is the variable p in this case, we can think of that as 100%, right? So that was the normal consumption. The variable p, whatever that was, it was 100% of that. Well, if we're decreasing by 14%, that means we go 100% minus 14%. So let's do a little work here. We start at 100% minus 14%. And that equals 86%. Okay, so now we have to represent this as an expression using the variable p in two different ways. Now, I want to point out common mistakes. A decrease of 14% means that we are using 86%, right? Or in this case, we're consuming 86% of what was consumed last time, right? Well, sometimes a common mistake that students will make is that they'll do a decrease of 14% and they'll say something like, let's say the pizza consumption is represented by variable p, so they do p minus 14%. That's not true. So we have to think about it as we started at 100%, we take away 14%, and we're now at 86%. So now we're going to focus on writing this in two different ways. The two different ways you could look at is a fraction, a fraction, or a decimal. So how do we write 86% as a fraction or a decimal? So let's take a look at that. So the rule for percent to decimal is divide by 100. So if I do 86 divided by 100, which you can see that that is also a fraction, right? So I could do 86 over 100 times the variable p, and that would be my expression. So that would be one answer. But now let's actually do 86 divided by 100. If I do that, I'm moving the decimal 2 places to the left. So that means it will say 0.86 p. So these could be your two possible answers. Now, I want to show you a third possible choice just as a bonus. We could write this as p minus 0.14 p, right? So p, right, which would be 1p, the number 1 represents 100%. So it really says 100% of P minus 14% of P. That would be 86% of P, right? So 0.86 P. Okay, nice work. Let's look at number 2. All right, we're on to number 2. Let's do this. Here we go. So it says, this year, my hypnotherapy business increased by 60%. Write this as an expression in 2 different ways using the variable h. My hypnotherapy business is represented by the variable h. Okay, so let's talk about this, right? So they're saying that the business increased by 60%. So it had the original, right? The original amount from last year, but then it also went 60% above that. So that's how you have to really look at this, is that you have to include the original, whatever that was, right? And then 60% above that. So let me go over the common mistakes. Common mistakes are somebody will say, okay, well, it's 60% increase, so it's just 0.6 times h. Well, that would be wrong because that is only the 60%. It's not the increase, right? So the increase is always starting at the original percentage. And the original most famous percentage is 100%, or the number 1, right? So 1 whole. So what we do is we say, okay, well, the hypnotherapy business started at 1h, right? So the 100% of whatever last year was. And then we're increasing, so plus 0.6h, and that will equal 1.6h. So there's my first answer. All right, so again, we have the original, right? The 100% of whatever the hypnotherapy business was last year, and then we're adding the 60% on top of that. Okay, now they want it written a second way, so let's do that. All right, so let's say instead of a decimal, we write it as a fraction. All right, so what would that look like? Well, we could do 16 over 10 h, right? 16 divided by 10 would be 1.6. So we could look at it that way. Or we could say 160, right? So that would be the 100% plus the 60% over 100, right? So if I divide by 100, I'm moving the decimal place 2 places to the left. So that would bring me right back to 1.6h. Okay, so there's a fraction answer. Oh, whoops, forgot the h here, right? And there's another fraction answer. All right, let's check out number 3. So number 3 says, oh, there's a bit of a typo there. It should have said an ant, my bad. So an ant can carry, here, why don't we just change that real quick? Okay. An ant can carry sometimes up to 5,000% of its body weight. Write this as an expression in 2 different ways using the variable a. The ant's body weight is represented by the variable a. Okay. So 5,000% its body weight. Well, what does that mean, right? 5,000% its body weight? How would you even write that? Well, remember, we have to think about percent to decimal, right? We can't just write a percent. We have to change it to a decimal, right? Or a whole number with a decimal at the end. So the rule again, right, is you take the percentage, so 5,000%, okay? Percent to decimal means you divide by 100. So if we take that number 5,000 and we divide it by 100, we will get 50. And then we multiply it times the A, right? So 5,000% would be 50 times its body weight, okay? And so you can see that you can write it as 5,000 over 100, or you could just write it as 50A, right? So it could be this one or that one. So we can box those up. Could be this one or that one. All right, great job. That's it for today. Thank you. Great job on finishing today's video. Thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, tell your friends and family. And if you want to dive deeper into chapter test work, you can check out my school platform, skool.com. The link will be in the bio below. And if you want more information on one-on-one tutoring, you can check out my website, rgtutors.com. Thank you again, and I'll see you on the next video. Bye-bye for now.